Welcome to the Alaska Mold Stories podcast, sponsored by Alaska Mold Dog, with your hostess, Miss Jennifer Kindred.
Good evening. This is the Alaska Mold Stories podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Kindred, and tonight I have a very special guest, and his name is Jered Alaska. And I'd like to welcome him to the podcast. And we had the pleasure of listening to his wonderful wife story. She was Alaska Mold Stories number 2. If you didn't have the opportunity to watch that, I would encourage you to do. And then Jered's here tonight to talk just about from the husband's perspective of what they went through, how it impacted his family, and if he was experiencing any symptoms, and then some helpful hints for other husbands that are out there in Alaska who their families might be being exposed to toxic mold in their living arrangements. And then lastly, we'll probably finish up with some changes he'd like to see that can protect us citizens from the water damaged buildings that we're exposed to every day here in Alaska. So welcome, Jered. And
well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And so if you want to just share a little bit about your story and just whatever you'd like us to know.
Sure. Well, my name's Jered. I am chief pilot at a local Part 135 air taxi out of Merrill Field. And before that, I flew in Southeast Alaska for 10 years. Came up to Alaska to fly, and I met my wife in Juneau. And in Juneau, probably 5 years or so after we were married, we were in a really crummy apartment, and my wife has shared all the details of this. But there was mold that came through the walls, and it was there. It was like, oh, yeah, mold, whatever. I've seen mold. Every other place we lived in Juneau had mold. And as everybody knows, Juneau is a rainforest. It is just wet all the time. Nothing ever dries out. So before we actually saw the mold come through the walls, before that, back up a few months, we move into this apartment, and my wife is getting sick. She's not able to sleep at night. She's having anaphylactic reactions. She's having weird nerve twinges and tingles and everything. And so she is the medical researcher. She researches everything so very well. And me, I am just your standard invincible guy, and I'm not getting sick. It's like, well, I don't know. And Emily is trying to figure out what's going on, and so she kind of narrows it down to like it's either some sort of gut issues or it's mold. And if it's mold, from what I've read, we need to leave this apartment. It's like, whoa. We can't leave. Like, we're locked into a lease. We just moved all of our stuff here, all this. Let's make it gut issues. So it must be gut issues. So we go on. Emily does, I can't remember it. All sorts of, like 2 or 3 different diets. Like there's GAPS and AIP and something, and I can't remember what it all is. Just a lot of soup. So much soup. And we do that for months, and it's not helping her. And so she's pretty convinced it's mold. And I was like, I didn't even see the mold. This one, she says, Jered, there's mold coming in our daughter's bedroom. It's like, okay, well, call the landlord, have them do something. So the landlord comes, and pretty sure they spray bleach on it or something. Emily gave all the details, but they like, oh, yeah, taken care of. And it came back. And Emily's just getting sicker. And she was like every night was, she had a few trips to the ER with anaphylaxis, and they gave her a Benadryl and charged us $1,400 for that. And that happened a handful of times. And she's saying, I think it's mold. And it's like no, like mold's everywhere. Like mold's outside, mold's inside. There's mold spores everywhere. This can't be, I'd never heard of it making somebody seriously sick. So she kept thinking it was mold. I was not convinced, to my shame. I should have listened to my wife in the first place, because she's smart and she knows what she's talking about. So she, on the advice of one of the many doctors that she had been seeing, she flew up to Anchorage to get, I think it was a mycotoxin urine test, something like that. And she goes up there and has to spend the night. And she spent the night in a brand new hotel. And she didn't have to take a Benadryl. And she's telling me this, like, whoa, she's been out of our house just like that. And all of a sudden she's fine. She's like, oh. She hops on the jet the next day to come back to Juneau. And Juneau is socked in. And the jet goes missed and ends up in Sitka. And she spends the night in a brand new hotel in Sitka. And again, she's fine. And it's like, oh my goodness, this might actually be a thing. Because she removed herself from what is allegedly making her sick and from the environment to a healthy environment, and she's miraculously better. And I mean, our marriage was suffering a little bit, and we're not able to sleep in the same room. She's awake all night. So I'm snoring. She can't handle my snoring. She can't get to sleep, so I'm like sleeping on the couch. And she's sleeping in the bedroom. She's not getting hardly any rest. So she's not able to sleep until 3 a.m. And then I have to get up at 5 a.m. to go fly. And it's like, well, if this must be something. So she comes back, makes it in. Boy, it was like, yeah, I think actually, I can't remember. I may have flown down. Oh, I tried to fly down to get her on one of my scheduled flights. But anyway, it worked out. She took Alaska Airlines back to Juneau, made it in. And that night, back in our crummy, moldy apartment, she gets sick again. It's like, honey, you're right. Okay, this is something. Let's leave. Let's get out of here. And Emily says, well, from what I've been reading, we need to get rid of our stuff. Our stuff isn't contaminated. It's like, what? No, like we can't afford that. There's no way we can afford to get rid of all of our stuff. Let's just find a clean apartment. Let's go. So through many trials and tribulations of trying to find a decent apartment and trying to get out of our lease and trying to get the landlord to realize this was a problem, we finally get out. And I unfortunately stood pretty firm, and we took all of our stuff with us. All of our clothes, all of our bedding, all of our books, and all of our precious things. And we get to a new apartment on another part of Juneau, and we're a little more aware of mold. And so when we did walk through the apartment and we looked up in the attic, it's like, there's that black up there. Maybe. It'll be fine. Emily felt pretty good. And we move in with all of our stuff. And Emily is not getting better. and she's getting worse. Benadryl every night now, like every night, popping the Benadryl. And so we are in this apartment, and so now I've become pretty well convinced that we brought our stuff with us. We contaminated this space. And I feel pretty foolish for doing that. It's like, okay, let's make this right. Let's try and make a clean break and start over again. So this is our first mold purge. Very long, convoluted story, but there's no other house that we can find to buy in Juneau. So we're at a good point with the company, make enough money. We have some money saved up, and we can afford to do a house. It's like, okay, let's get into our own house, and we actually find we can have a house built for us just for the same cost as buying a used house. It's like, sweet, okay, well, let's do this. So we meet with the contractor. It's like, hey, we're very concerned about mold. Please make sure that there's no mold on the wood, and you do a proper dry-in and build it right. And in Juneau, this guy, Lonnie, with the construction company, he was the foreman there, and he was fantastic. He went and he moisture metered every board for us and reported back to us, like, I moisture metered every board. I pulled out ones that had some mold on them, put in fresh ones, and our house got built. And it's done, and we're ready to move in. And we did the mold purge. And there was definitely a lot of friction between Emily and I in deciding what to take and what to leave. So like one of our big arguments was, Emily said, we need to leave anything that's porous. Like, okay, well, that makes sense. Foam and stuff, there's no way you're getting mold particles, mycotoxins and spores out of foam. Well, that makes sense. And clothes and stuff, yeah, that makes sense. Books, that makes sense. And then I think we had an argument about the laundry basket. It's like, do we take the laundry basket with us? And it's like, well, the edges of it are porous. It's like, no, they're textured. And I was just like, no, textured is porous. And so we were getting into that nitty gritty of things. Anyway, we got it sorted out. We decided that we would wash off textured things and throw away porous things. And so we had a whole system of every single plate was dumped in a bucket of ammonia water, rinsed in a bucket of fresh water, and taken right to the house. And we stacked up everything in the garage, and we had to get rid of a couple hundred books, mostly Emily's books. And Emily is a history and English double major from Hillsdale College, and she went and got rid of her most precious books that she had gotten her degrees with, and that was so hard. And we tossed all of our clothes. We tossed so many precious things. All of our a lot of our stuff from our wedding, a lot of our cards from our wedding, and other things like that we threw. I cut my guns. They're not porous. They're textured. So I washed off all my guns and with all sorts of solvents and chemicals and did that. And the day that we moved into our house, we had our old clothes. We went into the garage, shut the garage door, stripped off our clothes, chucked those ones out, hopped in the shower, and put on brand new clothes. I think that day the charge on the credit card was like $3,000. And I mean, for everything of new mattresses, new bedding, just and the very basics of new clothes. And that night in that house in Juneau, that brand new house, for the first time in a few years, Emily slept the night through. And it was great. And that was kind of a nice break, man. It was a good break for a couple years. Emily was able to sleep. We were able to again sleep in the same room together. It was good, and we figured out kind of a protocol. Emily can sense the mold, and at this point, I could not sense it. So she would be somewhere, and it's like, Jered, I'm getting itchy. It's like, okay, let's get out of here. And through the process of elimination, if she got exposed to mold, if it was a bad enough exposure, she would not be able to sleep that night. That's kind of how bad we knew it was. And then she would have to take Benadryl. I was like, okay. And then it's like we're starting to realize that we are being closed in from all sides by mold in Juneau. Our church is moldy. My truck is moldy. Even though I got a newer used truck, and it was moldy. Parts of my workplace were moldy. One year there was some massive snowfall that broke some roofs around town and sprung a leak in Fred Meyer's. And so now Fred Meyer's had a little moldy section to it that if Emily walked in that section, she got itchy. But anyway, so we kind of have our life down. It's difficult. When we figured out that if we got exposed to mold anywhere, our clothes we are contaminated, and so we want to keep our house mold free. Mm-hmm. So we come in, shuck off our clothes, take a shower right away. I come home from work, take a shower right away. Come home from the grocery store, take a shower right away. Come home from church, the whole family takes showers right away. It was becoming pretty exhausting. And then we start to, Emily starts to get a little itchy in the downstairs of our house. And 3/4 of our house was built on a slab, and 1/4 was built on a crawl space. And it was over the crawl space area that she was starting to get itchy. It's like, oh man. And I had stuck a dehumidifier down there, but I knew the crawl space flooded after every rain. And go down there and shake the sump pump to get it unclogged. It's like, and then I'll bing and pump out the crawl space. But it was humid. That dehumidifier was going all the time. So I go down there, I start looking around, and now we know what to look for at this point. And I see little speckles. And it's like, those weren't there before. Okay. It's like, well, it's about a 12-foot by 20-foot area, about 2 feet high. It's a crawl space. I'm going to try and remediate it myself. And so on days off from work, I got down there. And we set up plastic sheeting, double plastic sheeting, and negative air pressure. And there was a lot of duct tape, and plastic sheets, and using our box fans and stuff to do a pretty good job rednecking together remediation. So in our research, and we're discovering that nobody in Alaska at this point, or at least in Juneau that we know of, knows how to do a real proper remediation of material removal, not just spraying it with hydrogen peroxide, spraying it with bleach, and calling it a day. Because that's what any mold person in Juneau, that's what they would recommend. At this point in our research, we know that doesn't work. You need to physically remove the mold. So I get down there and with my sander. I sanded our entire crawl space, at least the visible mold. But I know there's places I can't get to with the sander between the joists and stuff like that. I pulled down all the insulation, sanded it. We threw out the old insulation, and I hate doing insulation, so I hired a buddy of mine to put in new insulation, and he also did new vapor barrier for us. And it was marginally better. We did a fog too. We did a whole, we bought a fogging machine, which are awesome, just a lot of fun. But a fogging machine, and you throw a mixture of water and some thieves and some dish soap and some glycerin. Basically, I found the material safety data sheet for the $500 a bottle stuff. And it's like, all right, here's the ingredients, and did some back of the napkin math and kind of figured out a fair approximation of their fogging solution. And basically, the fogging is it saturates the air to almost 100% humidity, and you almost create a cloud in there with extremely small water droplets. Those extremely small water droplets, mold spores, mold bits, and mycotoxins will glom onto those, and then the water settles, and you mix the glycerin in there so it stays sticky, which is one of the big things. And then you go in there and you wipe every surface. So I fogged the crawl space and fogged the downstairs hallway, and we did that twice, and that worked pretty good. And it was, but not quite good enough. And Emily she was starting to get, I guess, regress a little bit. And I can't remember the timing on things exactly because I don't have the best memory. But somewhere around that point, Emily discovered a lump on her breast. And that turned out to be cancer. Breast cancer. It's like, yay. All right, Lord. It's like, when it rains, it pours. So in addition to mold sickness, now we have breast cancer to worry about. She had surgery due to health insurance delays. It got delayed much longer than it should have. And by the time she had the surgery, the cancer had spread and became stage 4 cancer. Went from stage 1 to stage 4, just like that. It's like, oh, and it's like, this is serious. And we found, thanks be to God, we found an amazing doctor in Seattle that was able to get her on a novel and unusual chemotherapy protocol that's not standard, but he was this great old Chinese doctor, Dr. Chu, and he's since retired, but he's like, you're going to be okay. I know it's stage 4, but you'll be fine. All my patients, they still alive. You're fine. I was like, all right. So we started doing, Emily went every week to Seattle. Flew down in the morning, got shot up with chemo drugs, came back in the evening. So she's doing that. I'm full-time flying, training new pilots for the company, and do my normal everyday job, trying to watch our 2 daughters. And it was becoming very clear at this point that, we're pretty sure that the mold was a contributing factor to the cancer, because Emily doesn't have history of cancer in her family. She didn't have that BRCA gene, I think it is, that says that you get cancer. There were no other markers, and she's eaten very clean and very healthy. And the only thing that we could figure out is it's the mold. And so our house is still a little bit moldy. Church is still moldy. My truck's still moldy. The grocery stores are moldy now. Friends' houses that we go and visit are usually moldy. And we are just operating under this extreme sensitivity that everybody else, thinks we're just kind of odd, and they don't get it. They try to understand. my parents try to understand. They didn't quite get it at first. Now they do. And Emily's parents didn't understand, but we started to realize like we need to leave Juneau, and that was hard. And because I was in my dream job. I was flying beavers on floats throughout Southeast Alaska. And the company it was Alaska Seaplanes, and we had everything from beavers all the way up to Pilatus PC-12s. And I could spend, a morning dropping off some bear watchers in a beaver on a remote beach somewhere, come back, fly the mail in a caravan to another town, come back, hop in a Pilatus and fly to the other end of the panhandle with passengers and come back. And I was one of the most senior pilots at the company. I was checked out in every single airplane, qualified for every single destination, even the trickiest ones like Elfin Cove. And it was awesome. I loved work. There's not many people who can say they love the work. I loved work. I was excited Monday morning to go back to work because it meant I could go fly, and flying's my passion. And it's like, man, so thinking about moving and leaving Juneau was gut wrenching. But at this point, I realized like as a husband, I am charged with taking care of my wife. We made our wedding vows that one sunny day out at the little chapel on the island there in Juneau. Our wedding vows said for in sickness and in health. And it's like, okay, I need to get my wife, I need to get my family to a safer place. And my wife is a 5th generation Alaskan. I'm a South Carolina and Texas boy, but I knew that we didn't want to go back down south. We didn't want to go back to the lower 48. So I started researching weather patterns and average annual precipitation, and we landed on Palmer, just north of Anchorage. We thought about Fairbanks because Fairbanks definitely drier. But in doing some research and talking to people, we realized that people build their homes so tight in Fairbanks that a lot of them have more of a mold issue. Thought about Kenai, but Kenai is still pretty wet. And as you are very well familiar with, the build quality of things is not great. And so we moved to Palmer, and it was we stayed in an apartment, mother-in-law apartment with some very close friends of ours. And we unintentionally caused a big, slow water leak there at that apartment. And it was bad. Like, we discovered it, and I dug into it right away. And like, I opened things up without putting up any containment or anything. Emily's super sick again. It's like, okay, just move out tonight, honey. Go to an Airbnb, and I'll take care of this. Plug in the laptop. Anyway, and we started our second mold purge. And now it's like, we're supposed to be in like a nice dry part of Alaska where things are built well, and it's supposed to be, pretty good. And it's like, mold again. And so that was a adventure. And then we moved into our brand new house in Palmer that the contractor said, "Oh, don't worry, I built you a mold-free house." And he did not wrap the house in Tyvek. He did not flash a single window. And soon, a year into moving into the house, year and a half, something like that. Get the dates mixed up. Emily started to get sick again. And we did a $40,000 mold remediation. And thankfully, insurance paid for most of that. So we've been through the ringer with mold. At this point, we sold that house. We lost 30% of our equity that we had in the house because of it's kind of a compromised house, even though we fixed it up as best we could. Praise be to God, my wife is free of cancer now. But we are still, in a sense, running from mold. And it's become part of our lives these last 6 years. And it's tough. But I think though it's been tough, it has made my marriage with Emily much stronger as I have resolved that I am here to help her and I'm here to provide for her. And I'm here to make sure that she is as healthy as she can be. So I've done multiple DIY mold remediations at this point. We have gone through multiple mold purges, and we have it kind of down to a science now. Clear plastic totes with gasket lids are awesome to if you have your valuables that are moldy and you want to keep them, stuff like that. So that's our very short story. We are, at this moment, we sold our house. We are closing on a piece of land that's 4 acres. We're going to put up a tiny prefab cabin shell on it in a few months. And I got it in writing that they will not use moldy wood and that they will flash the windows when they prefab this cabin together. I'm going to do the inside, and we are going to make it a little temporary cabin for us to live next few months through the winter in on our own terms. I'm going to have all the plumbing exposed so you can see it. We are not going to hide any sources of water. We're nerding out on how to make this a nice little, Lord willing, mold safe cabin. And then next year, we are emptying our retirements, and we are going to build a kit cedar log cabin.
Nice.
Well, that's the goal.
Great.
So anyway.
Hopefully you guys, obviously you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but yeah, it's everywhere. And you brought up some really good points for people and the lack of knowledge. So, going back to just some of the things you were talking about, cross-contamination is huge. And people don't want to even think about that. So I just want to show you, I just got called on a job 8/5, it'll be labeled. This is a mattress, and it is very that's the Petri dish.
Yum, yum.
And so our viewers know, I was talking to this mom, and her 10-year-old was having heart palpitations one night. And I instantly went to, there's got to be a water intrusion event somewhere. They've got a basement, and I don't want to freak the mom out, but I realized there's something going on in that home. 10-year-olds don't have heart palpitations. So eventually the mom called me back, and we talked, and I said, that night your daughter came to you and said, I'm having heart palpitations, feel my heart, Mom, when you and I were talking. I said, where was she? And she said, she was in my bed. And then it hit to her. She said they knew their previous place had mold because the dog and I went in and we marked up all the areas. And they only brought one. Well, I think eventually they came up with 2 pieces of furniture, but one was that bed. And so they
Oh
brought
man.
it into that new home. And I'm writing the report right now, but uh, it's real. Um,
Yeah.
the cross contamination is huge. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, it just confirms, Emily's story as well. This little 10-year-old girl, she moves away from the moldy home, but the exposure in there was so great that they take one bed with them, and anytime she's around that bed, she's breathing in those same mycotoxins and those same spores that made her so sick that her body immediately reacts. And so, just good for our viewers to understand that is there is a lot of moving parts and pieces with this. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the main reasons that I do what I do is that your bucket overflows eventually when you're living in these places. And I
Yeah.
feel like if you guys would have had the correct information, if this family I'm dealing with would have had the correct information, if myself would have had the correct information, we could make educated decisions based on our health and well being that wouldn't put us in this predicament. And so, again, that's why I do what I do, telling these stories, because you can't go back and ever redo it. And I say, the podcast I've went on that I was interviewed, I just always say I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. It's you've talked about it. Your life, going to the
Mm-hmm.
grocery store, um, going to church, wherever. I'm a canary, a very different canary than Emily though. I don't get itchy, but I go in and like all of a sudden I just almost start having a panic attack, and I'm like, oh, there's mold here. I got to get out. And then people look at me like I'm crazy, like, oh, that's not, yeah, no, there's no mold here. And it's like, yeah, you might want to follow me and like get out too. But they'll just sit there
Yeah.
and breathe in the spores because they don't know any difference. So, anyway, I know
Yeah.
I kind of,
So yeah, that's been I guess the most difficult thing, or not, can't say the most difficult thing. One of the many difficult things has been trying to explain to normal people what my wife's sensitivity is like. And that's hard because, you know, either people are out there, they're living in mold, normal people, and it just doesn't affect them, or it affects them in a little bit and they don't realize it, or they are getting very sick and they don't realize that maybe it's mold that's making them sick and they are going down other rabbit holes to try and figure out what's making them. So it's hard to explain that. It's like that there are some really freaking sensitive people, like my wife, like you. Um, yeah, the way, if you want to kind of circle back to the cross contamination, like you brought up there, and kind of the point of I think my interview here is trying to help husbands understand.
mm-hmm.
So if you think of mold cross contamination, of mold is like glitter, like the most fine glitter that you can buy, and and it has been shaken all over your house. There's no way you are ever cleaning up all that glitter. You can try and clean up most of it, but it is stuck inside your clothes. It's stuck inside your bedding. Um, and you'll clean up some of it. You can clean up the big parts of it, but there's no way you're ever going to completely get rid of it. And a little bit of glitter or a little bit of mold can be maybe manageable, but when it starts to be a lot, that's when and it varies person to person, and that's a hard thing. There's no set standards. And as men, we pride ourselves in being cold, calculating, logical men. That I want a number, I want parameters, I want red lines, I want green zones. And that was the hardest thing, and it's something that Emily and I really butted heads about a lot. I was like, give me a number. And then, hey, if it's over this number, then we'll go. And if it's below that number, we're staying. I was like, no, there's no number, honey. There's everybody's different. I'm different from somebody else. And I now realize that's true. It's such a gray zone in how sensitive people are. And
I think that's going to be changing soon, hopefully. And so in my Tuesday trainings that I have, we're going to get away from using the word mold. So I was told that by 2027, I'm probably not going to be titled a mold assessor anymore. It's going to be called a biotoxin assessor. And the reason why they're going there is because these are biotoxins. I think they're hoping to gain some more traction. Like, I love the way you started this off with molds everywhere. I hear that all the time. Mold is, and yes, it is. I always say, yes, it is. But that narrative has been out there for so long that it's really super hard to get people to transition away from that thinking pattern to something different. So I think one of the ways that they're going to shake this up, because it truly is, they believe, contributing to a lot of deaths in America. And you also brought up something really great about the hospitals. So I don't know if I sent this to Emily or not, but the CDC a couple weeks ago came out with a study. They've been monitoring hospitals in Atlanta, Georgia. And what happened is they know that mold illness has been underreported and not looked at in those hospitals. And so they are not sure exactly how many fatalities are linked to mold illness, but it's a very good study. And I think going back to you talking about Emily going in and out of the ER, I mean, what an amazing thing to, if you could, press rewind. And one of those times somebody at that hospital just said, let's check you for mold. We've seen you here a couple different times and we don't have answers. So hopefully that's on the horizon, but that will put a different spin on this. And hopefully people will really look at it for what it actually is. It's just not mold, mildew, or, I hear a lot of different terms, but anyway. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because I remember when you were talking about the ER, I went, I got to tell them about this study.
That's interesting. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I can send that to you as well.
Yeah, email it to me.
So as a husband, a great husband, because I heard you've made a lot of sacrifices for your wife and family, big ones for health. What advice do you have to husbands who may be going through this, the purging of, we're such a consumer driven society too, that's so hard to think, I got to get rid of my stuff and like all our stuff. What advice would you give to husbands or other families going through this?
Well, to other husbands out there, we are, in general, think ourselves as fairly invincible. We think that we are tough enough and strong enough to be able to muscle through anything. And we are in most ways. But mold is not something to mess around with. Our wives, for some reason, it just seems, and this is anecdotally, in my opinion, it seems that women are more susceptible to getting sick due to mold. Up until just a couple years ago, I could never smell it. I could never sense it, anything. Now I'm sensitive myself, a little bit. My sensitivity is a little different than Emily, and I get a little itchiness here and there if I'm in a moldy area. And I actually, but that's it. I'm like, I'm itchy. I get out of there, feel itchy for a few minutes afterwards, and then I'm fine. And that's it. It's not. I don't get sick. I don't have no debilitating symptoms at all. So I can be my wife's little. I will go in and check out places for her. It's like, nope, it's moldy in there. Don't go in there. So I can be her guard dog.
The mold scout. I'll remember that if I'm ever around you.
Yes, I can be her mold scout. That's the best way to put it. But yeah, so other husbands out there, believe your wife. Your wife is not just being hysterical. Your wife is not being silly. Your wife is another full human being created in the image of God with full knowledge and full intellect as much as you. And I think we can easily get into the trap of thinking that we are smarter than our wives. And we're not. I so wish I could rewind years ago to that first moldy apartment. And when my wife first suggested it was mold, I wish I could have just said, now, get rid of our stuff. We're moving. Clean start right now. And maybe my wife wouldn't have gotten cancer.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
So that's kind of what I think back to a lot. And yeah, as far as moving and getting rid of stuff, it seems crazy to do it, but I know it's important to do. And in the end, it's very easy and trite to say stuff is stuff. I mean, it is. But it sure keeps down on accumulating junk. The hardest thing is, for me, it's having to get new hunting equipment a lot. I don't know how many nice camouflage rain gear I've had to get rid of because of all this. But you can always get it again. You can borrow some friends, or just be wet.
I guess you probably have the latest and greatest if you're always having to get rid by
I wish.
more.
Yeah. But then when you start buying things, it's like, how easy is it to clean this if this gets moldy?
Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
true.
Grundens, Helly Hansen's, just the rubber stuff. Hey, it's not breathable. You get sweaty, but it's rubber on the outside. You can just wipe the stuff off and keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So symptom wise, I know you said you haven't had a lot, but just in talking to you and listening to you a minute ago, would you say maybe all the exposures have accumulated with you over time too, that now your sensitivity has, came about, I guess, for lack of a better word right now.
Yeah, maybe.
And so we talk about that bucket. Everybody's bucket is different, and exposures as well. So maybe Emily went to a moldy school as a elementary school student, and maybe you didn't. So that's another reason why I advocate as well, because everybody has a toxic bucket. Everybody has a toxic mold bucket. And when you reach
Mhm.
that and you spill over is when we have issues. And so if we can eliminate the exposure, especially for the children, and a lot of people don't realize this, but there's so much conflicting information out there. I think most people realize that. But the CDC actually has a poster. You have to dig for it, but if you put in what not to wear or what to wear in a moldy building, and it's a person with gloves and a respirator, and at the very bottom in red it says children should not be in buildings with mold. Like,
Right
it's a
there.
poster, and
Yeah.
yet you have to dig to find it because it's of what to wear when you're in a moldy building.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find any other information on it. But we know that children should not, they're developing brains. It's neurologically not good at all for them to be in buildings, whether it's a home, a school, or a church with uh,
Yeah.
microbial growth. Poor indoor air quality is really bad on the children. And so I will keep speaking
Yeah.
that truth and screaming it from the mountaintops.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, our daughters, or at least Piper, when she was around mold, she had some weird breathing stuff that went on when she was a real little child, and as soon as we got out of mold, those breathing problems went away. So
That's good. Yeah.
it's a
And I,
thing, and yeah, we so want to keep to make sure we're not additionally burdening ourselves with toxins more than we have to,
mhm.
and that's a hard thing for guys because I will happily run in somewhere and do work. It's like, well, it's moldy, or there's, I don't know, maybe there's some lead paint somewhere, or maybe there's some other. I was like, well, I'm a pilot. I work with lots of solvents and chemicals and jet fuel all the time, and jet fuel smells great, but it's not good for you. At least jet exhaust smells awesome. Um, and so I gotta, as I've become more and more aware of, if you want to call it toxic burdens, um, I've been that's something I need to probably get better at, of limiting my exposures. Um,
Yeah. So I guess to, finish this up, what
mhm.
changes would you like to see um, happen for protection in Alaska?
Yeah, in Alaska, so state law. I think you got to be. There's some people out there who's like, oh, people who build multi buildings should be thrown in jail or something extreme like that, and that is obviously not right and not going to go anywhere. Any change that people want to make should be, um, have a realistic chance of actually becoming law. Um, what I would like to see is tenants, um, being given the same disclosures and the same depth of disclosure that a house buyer gets. A house buyer is required to receive from the seller a like 15 pages of disclosures of everything, the whole history of that house. And there's a whole section in there, about 3 sections of, is there any history of mold, mildew, or water damage? Um, and then you have to explain it. And we've seen cases where people who were selling houses that did not fully disclose known mold were found liable further down the line, and rightly so, because they should have disclosed it. Um, So I would like that same protection, that same level of scrutiny, or the same level of available scrutiny be given to tenants renting apartments. That a landlord renting an apartment should have a whole disclosure of that. I would like as much detail as a house, and I think that would be pretty fair. And then if a tenant says, "Well, I don't care about it," then move in. It's like, okay, well, that's on you. Go move in.
Right.
So disclosures, number one. Number two, for tenants renting, be given maybe some sort of an amendment to the Alaska Landlord Tenant Act, which is a great act and really has some good, solid protections for tenants and for landlords, and really strength and kind of lays out duties and responsibilities on each side. But amend the Landlord and Tenant Act to have a little more of an out for tenants if they are getting sick because of mold. Then the last thing I would like to see is what's the standard called for remediation? The ICRC?
Mm-hmm. Yes. 500.
Yeah,
520.
500. Yeah, the 520. Whatever document or set of standards that is, be made if you're going to call yourself a mold remediator in Alaska, that's the standard that you use. Not just spraying some bleach on it and calling it a day.
Yeah, and that's minimum. And people don't realize that either. They take that as like this is just it. But when I talk to people, that's minimum standard. And just like our codes, when I was talking with the contractor the other day, I said, "Well, your code is minimum standard, correct?" And he's like, "Correct." And I said, "So, how long ago was it they updated those codes? We're falling behind horribly in updating these things." And so the reason why I wanted to say that is I want to put a plug in for our organization, the Normie organization. We use that as a guideline, but we take in account how the occupants are feeling, what their health, how their health is being impacted. It actually drives our protocols. So we don't just say, we're going to go by that because that's industry standard. We take it one step further and say
Nice.
That's minimum industry standard.
Yeah.
So I love your ideas. I didn't mean to cut you off. So
No, that's fine.
but I did want to put that plug in there because
That's great that you guys do that.
I'm kind of a little bit frustrated with people down here who they say, "Well, I go by that standard," and their workers are walking into homes with Stachybotrys cattomium without any protection at all. No, I mean not even an N95, and I'm like, this is bad because we know that there's inhalation Alzheimer's. We know there's inhalation dementia, and it doesn't always show up right then. It's accumulative. So it could be 30 years later and you start showing signs of Alzheimer's. And it could be from exposure to mold 20 years earlier that wasn't taken serious. And so that's just kind of why I wanted to say that. We're hoping to push that needle even further. Like right now that's what everyone goes to, but we're saying that's not even enough at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
So, I should wrap it up here shortly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unless there's anything else, I just want to thank you again for coming on and sharing your story, and we wish you the best of luck. And in your new home adventure. I know that it's going to be great. And hope that either you or Emily come back to share some advice later on. I'm hoping to have somebody that does straw homes come on here pretty soon just to give people different information about healthy home building and what's out there instead of just the typical Tyvek sheetrock blow-in insulation. We're going to roll into that as well. So I'd love for you guys to come on later on and give us some ideas of how it went, what you guys did.
We'll send pictures as we do it.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much. Again, this is Alaska Mold Stories, and just thank you and your family for sharing your story. So sorry that it is something you guys have had to live through, but that's what this podcast is about, is giving a voice to the voiceless, so that we can make some positive changes here in Alaska and hopefully nationwide, because this is a, the train's rolling down the track nationwide. We're all collaborating together and saying enough is enough.
Yeah, it's exciting to see some more visibility being brought to mold, and it affects some people. So thanks, Jennifer. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. Yep. Have a good night.
Yeah, have a good one.
This is Alaska Mold Stories, because sometimes healing begins when someone finally believes your story. With your hostess, Jennifer Kindred. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay well.